In today's video, we get to go back to the world of Final Fantasy VI. In particular, we are revisiting the characters of Final Fantasy VI. That is right, I am throwing you a tier list, so come on over, get involved. Tell me if I am right, tell me if I'm wrong. Agree with me, disagree with me. Can we agree just to disagree? However you want to tackle it, please get involved in this video. But there is one thing to note in particular with this one. We're not just looking at the characters and their story arc. We are going to look at their value to the party and their abilities. So it's going to make it a little bit more interesting. So with that all being said, what is up guys, Jen here, hope you are all doing well. Welcome back to the channel. Timestamps down below for each character, so if you want to skip to your favourite and see where it ranks, then please do that. If you want to skip to the end of the video and see the tier list at its end, you can do that, but don't comment saying that I'm wrong unless you've got the context of how I got there. So watch it and then you can comment. But however you want to watch this video, I don't mind. Just leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you like the content, hit the notification bell if you want to be notified of the content, and of course comment section below. So let's switch over to the screen we have today. We can see it's a nice small tier list of the characters of Final Fantasy VI, and we're just going to start off with the characters that it offers. So at first we have Umaro. I probably pronounced it very wrong, but I didn't spend much time with this guy, and his story, very simple. We're introduced to him in the depths of the Nash caves off a cliff somewhere. Mog tells us that there's some place to visit, or there's some kind of mysterious goings on, and then we meet Umaro. I can't even say his name, but where does he rank? Well, I didn't use him at all. I've probably briefly used him just to see what he had to offer, but he kind of takes that berserker role, so you don't really have much control over him. So we have a very weak story and a very set in stone ability set that we can't really maneuver around here. So I think with that being said, he's got to go in the F tier. So moving on, we have Gogo. Players of Final Fantasy V, especially me playing it before Final Fantasy VI, will recognize this guy who gave you the Mimic job. And guess what his ability is? It's Mimic. So you already got a good start here. But what is his character background? It's because he's a side character, way out the story. You don't see him in the end, any of the ending cutscenes or anything like that. But he comes with Mimic, and Mimic is a really good ability, especially when we dive into the abilities of the other characters, and the fact that he can repeat that action every turn is definitely something that is good for the party. But again, that story arc and the character just kind of brings him down. It's nice to see the guy again from Final Fantasy VI, but from Final Fantasy V, should I say. But I don't know if he should be a D, because just the whole character and the story brings it down. But Mimic is good. So you know what? I think we're going to keep it easy with the C. We're going to just keep him on a nice easy level here. But next up is Strago, our blue mage of the party. But before we go into his abilities, how was he represented as a character? How was his story told? Well, when compared to Relm, it's a little bit weaker because Relm's a bit more expansive because it's relating to another character of the party, which we'll dive into as well. But he doesn't really have the strongest story, but he is a blue mage, and the way that the blue mage works in this game is we have lore. It's called lore, and the way we learn abilities is not like Final Fantasy V, where we had to kind of find the enemies, get them to be used on us, and then we'd learn them. We just have to see the action being used. So I had a lot of fun with that, and I really wish that they took that trait of the blue mage that Strago had brought to the table for other Final Fantasy games, or even go back to, for instance, the blue mage of Final Fantasy V and learn your abilities that way. So again, I think Strago is probably a very strong C, because I really like blue mages. I like learning abilities, I like finding monsters, and the fact that I don't have to wait around for that to be used on me in particular, or should I say Strago, you know, it's a good time. So now we're moving on to Relm, and I really like Relm's very brief story arc, especially when we get into the world of Ruin and we learn a little bit more of who her father could be. She's a very fun character, she works really well, like bouncing off Strago, and you know, that is, it's not like the strongest character arc of Final Fantasy VI, but it's a nice fun one, and she isn't like annoying. Sometimes you have the traits of younger characters being very annoying, and I didn't find Relm to be that. And yeah, I think that's a pretty, you know, nice even level playing field when it comes to story. But what does she bring to the table as a party member? She has Sketch, and Sketch will sketch the monster that you are against and use an ability. So kind of take it as a blue mage, but instead of learning it, you're just using it by copying, like a copy of the Mimic and the blue mage together. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. If you've played, you will know. But if you equip Relm with the fake moustache, you will then change the Sketch ability to manipulate, or control, should I say. Sorry, I'm playing Final Fantasy VII at the moment and it's called manipulate, so confusing of words, but control. So we can control the enemy to use maybe a blue magic ability that they wouldn't usually use, like a white wind or a big guard. And that was useful, especially when one of the trophies for Final Fantasy VI is to get a certain amount of blue magic. Relm is very helpful in that regard. So I'm going to move her just a little bit up from Strago, and we're going to give her a B ranking. Let's move on to Mog, and Mog is obviously a staple of a Final Fantasy. Like every Final Fantasy, you see a Moogle, you think, oh, I feel at home here. So I got that here, and this is where the Moogles are most prominent. Obviously, we had like a big Moogle forest in Final Fantasy V, but we actually play as the Moogles. Very early on, we get to play as lots of Moogles, but when we revisit in the world of Ruin, we get to kind of add Mog to the party, and he brings a lot of dancers. Like story-wise, not really anything there. It's a Moogle, so we'll just kind of take that as a category. Like, yes, it's a Moogle. But abilities of the dance, I think there was just one that I used. Let me just have a look what we've got here. Because there was one that I can use consistently that really helped out in certain scenarios, and I really can't remember what it was. Was it Love Serenade? I can't remember. Or was it Twilight Requiem? Can't remember. But their songs are very, very useful in certain situations. They're more kind of like status elements, or boosting defense, or boosting attack, and that can help out considerably. So I think Mog is going to join this kind of like plain Jane lineup we've got going off here in the C category. So let's move on to Terra, the main character of Final Fantasy VI, definitely like the face of Final Fantasy VI. But she has a very good story arc. It really kind of shifts into high gear when, again, we're at World of Ruin, and that happens for a lot of the characters. Like, they really find their place and really have their effect on us as a player in the World of Ruin. But obviously, Terra starts off as like she's being controlled because of her abilities. How she's got these abilities, we obviously learn later, because she is born of both a human and an Esper would be the right way of putting it. So there's that uniqueness and kind of like familiarity when the story gets told. But she's out of the party an awful lot, and we don't really get to use her ability until the World of Ruin, or when we get her from Zozo. So in that regard, she has a strong story. She is the protagonist. Is she the protagonist though? We'll talk about her soon. But she is the main character. Like, you go through the Final Fantasies and she's there when Final Fantasy VI is represented. Her ability, Trance. Well, how do I feel about this? Because this boosts attack and it boosts magic ability. And the more battles that are fought, it lasts longer. So it's something you want to consistently use. But I didn't really use Terra that much. But her story brings her to a B tier, but I do think she's weaker on the ability side. So next we are looking at Locke, and Locke is your thief of the game, so you can steal items. And the good thing with Final Fantasy VI, as we've kind of gone through the Final Fantasies, that stealing isn't just about stealing potions and high potions. There are some rare equipments that you can steal throughout the game, so that boosts the value of a thief for me. Now when it comes to his story, he has a really good story. He's very contained in the early hours and well, pretty much the first half of the game. Then we learn more, and if we go out of way to learn even more, it's quite a nice story to tell. And I really had a lot of I just kind of connected with Locke quite well. And for that reason, I'm putting him in A. So now we are moving on to Edgar. And, you know, this guy's the king of a kingdom. He's very witty, he's very you know, really kind of happy-go-lucky, but at the same time he's kind of like trying to move on from his past in the world of ruin. But he looks even slightly different in his pixel colour as well when we see him in the world of ruin. I do like Edgar as a very likeable character. I used him in my party as much as I could, and that was because of the tools command. Throughout the game we get to buy more and more tools, but some of these are very useful. In particular, if I get the names right, I know that Chainsaw is definitely one off the top of my head that helped me out a considerable amount throughout the game. Obviously auto crossbow straight off the bat attacks all enemies, which is really, really nice. But the one that really did it for me was Drill. Drill was the one that got me through a lot of tough times, combined with Chainsaw. And then obviously you got Bioblaster, you got Flash as well. Very helpful in all situations, this guy. So this king of Figaro gets to go in to the S tier. Do you agree with that? You have to let me know. But now we're moving on to his brother, and it's a similar thing here. Even though I think he has the weaker story out of the brothers, he definitely does have a history, and that does relate to his ability set and what he brings to the table in Final Fantasy VI. And what he brings to the table is Blitz. And Blitz is something that we're going to become familiar with as we go through more Final Fantasy games, especially the next two in 7 and 8, and that is button commands to use an attack. And some of these attacks are pretty powerful. Raging Fist, obviously by default we use, can really help out, but using Meteor Strike definitely got me through some tough battles. So for that reason, I think Sabin, I don't even know if I said his name right. I'm going to have to go back on the footage and think, did I say, I didn't even introduce him by name. I just said Edgar's brother. But Sabin, or Saban, or however you want to pronounce it, is going in the A tier. Now we are moving on to Celes. I already know where she's going, and I think you guys already know where she's going. So let's just talk about that for just a second. I think she is the main character of Final Fantasy VI. Especially with the role she takes in the second part of the game in the world of ruin. Her ability is really weak. You literally get tutorialed into it in the first battle you fight with her. Like, use it, please. I bring in all the magic and I restore a little bit of MP. But you're probably not going to use this ability very much. But having her equipables in the party as well as we go on. She had the Excalibur, she had the Ultima Weapon, she was dual-handed, she was dishing out damage. She was my main character. And her story, like how strong her story arc is, from being part of the Empire, betraying the Empire or being outed by the Empire, to them being part of the party and then having this redemption arc and this very like father-daughter relationship with Cid and the way that goes, especially if you play it to the point where you don't get the fish that you need for Cid. If you know, you know. But she is an incredible character. Can't forget her scene in the opera house as well. Like, she has some of the strongest scenes in the game. So, like, for that reason alone, even though her ability is just not on par with some of the characters here, she is the main character of Final Fantasy VI. I said it, and that's why she's in S for me. So we're moving on to Shadow now. Shadow is the ninja of the team, and his story is very convoluted, and it was never confirmed. I think it later got confirmed in a developer interview, but this guy is a father to one of the main cast, in particular Relm. Like, there you go, spoilers. I don't know how many like tiptoes I was trying to take there to try and tiptoe around it, but it didn't work. And that's the impression we got. So he really does have a bit of a backstory that ties into everything. And if you go out your way to get those scenes and see it, and the way he is at certain parts of the story, being like this guy that wants to work with the Empire, whatever's best for him, and it doesn't work out, so he's with the party, kind of have this kind of relationship with Shadow. When it comes to his abilities, he has throw. If you've got the shurikens in your inventory, you're going to have a very good time. Shadow, definitely one of the stronger characters here. I am actually going to put him next to Relm here in B tier. I was going to put him in A, but I was thinking like some of these in A and S are a lot stronger than him. I don't think he deserves to be up there for me. So B is probably the place where I want him to be. So let's talk about Cyan and see where he ranks amongst the characters of Final Fantasy VI. Now, his story, you know, is pretty deep. Like right at the beginning, you have what happens at Doma Castle, and then kind of reflecting on it in the Phantom Train, and then also reflecting on it more and diving deeper into him in the World of Ruin when we go back to Doma Castle and we kind of go through that dream sequence. So he has some really strong scenes, and he really brings some strong abilities to the table as well. Let's just call some of these out. He has the Bushido technique, and he learns all these, like we've got Fang, Sky, Tiger, Flurry, Dragon, Eclipse, Tempest, Oblivion. Like, these are some insane attacks, especially in the late game. So I think it's an easy S here for Cyan. I was thinking, yeah, he's going to go in A, but just kind of reflecting on some of those story beats that he had and the abilities he brings to the table, you can't fault him. Now we're moving on to Gaul. That's how I'm going to roll with his name here. Sometimes I like to butcher him, sometimes I like to have a little bit of fun. But, you know, this is a character that you come across in the Welt, and, you know, he's got a very kind of like convoluted story here. It's not very clear. You do have a scene later in the game where his father might be, and the guy's like, nope, don't know what you're on about. So he doesn't really have, he has some really cutesy scenes leading up to that as well. But his abilities, you know, was really tedious on the re-release for the PC Steam version, you know, the not so great graphical one. I think you had to learn all of his rages to get an achievement. This one you have to learn 50, and you know that I'm thinking, guys, you know, his abilities don't really bring much to the table. I only used him because I needed to learn those. Like, that's all it was. So, you know, I'm going to put him here in D. I think that's probably a fair place to put him for me. But if you disagree, let me know, and let me know why in particular. So we're kind of rounding this whole video off with Setzer, our kind of airship giver in this game. So his story, you know, starts off like as a charming gambler, and we really have to convince him to kind of give us the airship so we can go to the... No, we go to the Opera House, and then we have to convince him to have his airship. But in the World of Ruin scenes, we do kind of get a bit backstory, because we have to go through certain events to get the other airship to travel around in the World of Ruin. And it's a nice touching story that he had. But when it comes to his abilities, we've got the slots, and slots are random. So, you know, I only used him, and I was really lucky to get the Death's Joker, I think. By accident, just by auto battling. I wasn't actually grinding for it. I was just grinding for the sake of grinding, and I thought, well, if I have Setzer in my party, there is a possibility I might get this, and I got it. So apart from that, I didn't really use him. His weapons are cards. So, you know, I'm torn between D and C here. So I think because he gave us an airship, he's got to go in C. I know that wasn't a factor for other characters, what they brought to the table just in general, but there you go. There is the finished tier list of Final Fantasy VI characters from my perspective. And going back over these characters, you know, Final Fantasy VI does have a strong cast of characters, really does, and it does it justice when you get to that end credit scene, and it kind of like gives you like Terra played by Terra Branford or whatever. Do you know how they do it with a little kind of an object that kind of represents them, and then their name, and then a small scene during the credits? There's such a strong cast of characters, and you know, I had a really good time with Final Fantasy VI. Would I revisit it? I think I will, you know, in a couple of months' time, maybe next year, and just kind of get lost in this world and its characters once again, because I had a good time. If you're wondering why I'm looking here, this is where I can see my tier list and I'm just kind of reflecting. And I like reflecting sometimes when I make these videos. It's one of the most joyful things to do, when you kind of reflect on an experience. So I'm hoping that you guys can agree, or we can at least talk about it in the comment section below. Let me know what you think and where characters rank for you. I appreciate your time as always, and until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.